Welcome to Cybersecurity Growth, a show for aspiring and existing cybersecurity leaders. I'm your co-host, Sean Valley, Managing Director and CISO of Cybersecurity Growth, former Chief Security Officer of Rapid7, former CISO of Tricentis. I'm also a musician here on Twitch and elsewhere under the name Music by SV, but more on that later. Welcome to episode lucky number 13, NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0. And introducing my new co-host, Garrett Gross. Welcome, Garrett.
Hey, Sean. Nice to be here, finally.
Yes, happy to have you.
Absolutely. So what are we going to talk about today? We got the NIST Cybersecurity Framework. That's going to be quite a large topic to unpack.
I believe so, right? They went from a 1.1 to a 2.0. So that's a big deal.
Coming, right?
That's a big deal. So we'll get into it. You know, we'll talk about that. That is what we will call our hot topic of the week. But
love that.
You know, before we dive into it, like, this is a big deal. One, we haven't had this show. I haven't had this show run in the better part of 6-ish months or so. So that's, you know, I'm excited to be back to hit the go live button. I'm excited to be back on the air.
Revive this phoenix from the ashes.
It's amazing. More exciting, I have you here. I have a co-host. This is the first time we've had dual. We have a co-host today. This is a first. So welcome. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, awesome. Well, first and foremost, thanks so much for having me. Sean and I have known each other for quite some time. You know, I'm a fellow musician, fellow security person. Sean and I have worked together in actually several capacities. We'll get into that or may not get into that later. I've been a hacker my entire life, beginning from very, humble Apple IIc acoustic coupler modem manipulation to, what I do today, where I build security products for a company that I can't talk about.
What was that? Acoustic what?
Oh, an acoustic coupler. You remember that? Remember Weird Science, where they have the phone handset that you plug into the receiver and that actually does your, data over the telephone line?
That was the thing that brought her to life?
That's right.
It's basically all I went to. I went right to that. So what brought her to life?
I forget her name in the movie, but I can't think of her name in real life either. But yeah,
it's fantastic.
The beautiful creation from there. Yeah.
Well, hey,
so that's me in a nutshell. Hacker, dad, musician. Here I am.
Very nice. Well, welcome. We're very, very glad to have you here. This is very exciting. I want to do a shout out to some of our new followers on Twitch. We've had a few followers since the last time we get together, but we'll shout out just some of the few that are most recent. AADN2110, Data Beta 24, Data Beta 24, Mayu 225. The next one I love, Linus Worm. Thank you for the follow. Tech Free or Tech Freya, thank you for the follow. And just momentarily, right as we went live, Conducta, like very, very Boston. There's no R at the end. It's an H. Conducta. I'm the conductor. It could be more Maine, maybe. That could be like Maine, but it's Northeast.
Also, with Linus Worm, you have to wonder, is that Linus or is it Linus? Like our friend Linus Torvald.
That would make sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you for the followers. I saw we had a few followers over on the YouTube, so thank you for those followers as well. Appreciate that. So we have a whole new agenda for how we run the show. We'll get into the agenda. There's a few segments we get into. We will have a hot topic section, which we already introduced, the NIST CSF 2.0. That'll be our hot topic section. We have a few other sections we'll get into today just to kind of set the tone and the theme. We have a nerd zone. We'll tell you about it when we get there. We have war stories. We have let's be humans. And we talk a little bit about the job market. That is our agenda for the day, and if we're feeling it, that might be the agenda for the next time we get together with new and fresh stuff each time.
Well, that'd be nice. It kind of gives folks, something to look for, plan for next time. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so we'll see.
And this is a departure from your normal format, right? I mean, this is kind of a little bit of a change up, as I understand.
It is a big change, right? If I think about my previous shows, I actually called the shows Death by PowerPoint or Death by Slides, where I would basically just be the teacher who lectures. I was just, it was like the SANS security class where I'm just at the front of the room hitting the slides and kind of walking through things. And we're changing it up.
For the right topic, I think that's probably helpful for folks.
I think we'll come back to it because I actually, as weird as it is, I actually kind of like being a slide engineer. I'm a hell of a PowerPoint engineer sometimes when I want to be. So I don't think we'll throw it away, but I like this new format. I'm excited. It's fresh. It's vibrant. So I'm looking forward to it.
Same.
Before we get into it, we really start the show. Every show, if you've seen it before, you'll know. But if you haven't, I'll get you into it. We always like to know, as we're entering the show, who are you wearing? And so, Garrett, I'm going to throw this to you today. I'd like to know, who are you wearing today?
I feel like this is a personal attack. What do you mean? Who am I? I don't wear designer clothes.
Well, you see here, if you think about, I think the Oscars were recently, right? There was some type of award show. When people walk the red carpet, they get interviewed and get asked, "Who are you wearing today?" Dolce and Gabbana, something along those lines. And so, just wondering, I was just figuring, you gave your intro, and it made me think, I'm just going to ask this question. Who's Garrett wearing today? Because I have a feeling he's got an answer, even though he's not ready for this.
I will not disappoint. I do feel like this is a personal attack, but today I'm wearing Okta.
There it is. Okta. Well, there you go.
And I should give a disclosure. We are not sponsored by Okta. I'm not endorsing Okta. I just endorse their wonderful sweatshirt I'm wearing.
First of all, thank you for the disclosure. I actually just never do disclosure, so I probably should have been sued 10, 20, 30 times over by now. Good thought on the disclosures. Maybe we'll think about those going forward.
It's kind of my thing,
That's good. That's good.
Sean, what about you? Just to kind of throw it right back at you, I actually know who you're wearing because I'm intimately familiar with this shirt. But Sean, who are you wearing today?
Well, some might look at this shirt and say it is the Legend of Zelda Triforce, but it is not the Legend of Zelda Triforce. It says SecOps, DevOps, Security, and IT. DevOps, Security, and IT. And there's right over here. It's Rapid7.
Rapid7, everyone's favorite New York train line.
It is, yes. So I'm wearing SecOps, and I've had this one for a couple days. There was a time, I think this was a big part of their kind of marketing plan, right? All things SecOps. So here I am. I'm wearing SecOps by Rapid7. It's a classic.
If I remember correctly, that was like a big show, like an RSA or a Black Hat shirt launch. Like that wasn't just, hey, we have a new shirt. It's like, this is our whole new marketing campaign.
I think it was. Yeah. I forget what show it was at, but I was like, that's a cool looking shirt because I actually do love Legend of Zelda and the Triforce and it's got the triangle thingy. So
it's very comfortable.
So
too.
I'm down with that. And I'm a nerd too. So it's kind of mix all the things, and it's comfy. Just like the right mixture of cotton or whatever else you put in a t-shirt.
I mean, hey, Rapid7, famous for a lot of things, but I will say that they did not skimp on the quality of the shirts.
No. And I'm sure there have been several shows in the past where I was wearing Rapid7, and I'm sure there will be many more as well. I may have a smidge of Rapid7 clothing.
Half my wardrobe is probably Rapid7 at this point, so we're good.
Okay, great. Well, there's who are you wearing. Thank you for joining me on that. So let's get into the hot topic of the week. The NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0, or as the cool kids just call it, the CSF, the NIST CSF 2.0. So on February, so I'm going to read some things that I thought will help start the conversation. Over at NIST.org, you can read the whole white paper and all the details, but I borrowed some shortcuts from Cooley.com. And over at Cooley.com, they talk about how the NIST unveils the Cybersecurity Framework 2.0. This was unveiled on February 26th, so just not too long ago. So let me make sure that we're all on the same page. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, released a long-awaited second version of the cybersecurity framework, the CSF, and they're dubbing it the CSF 2.0. It contains a few significant changes. The biggest thing that really jumps out is they've created a new govern function. And then I'll talk about I'll just mention the two other things, and then we can talk a little bit about it. So they created a new govern function. So previously there were 5 functions. We'll talk about each of those in a moment. But now there's a new govern function. They increased acknowledgement of supply chain and vendor security. An intentional effort to reframe the CSF to make it more accessible to and usable by smaller organizations.
Now, Sean, the CSF, for us that are not policy standards gurus, that is the wheel, right? That's the identify, protect, detect, respond, recover, right?
Those are the things, right? And I think of CSF, so just, to kind of go back on your question there, when people are building a security program from the ground up, someone gets hired as a security manager or as a director of security or CISO, right? And they go into an organization and are like, hey, I need to build a security program, and I don't know where to start. And people ask, hey, where do you start? I will often say, there's just so much to focus on. What I would recommend is, based off of where your industry and where you're focused at, pick one of the major frameworks and just start at the top and work your way down. And oftentimes I'll say, if you don't know, what to start with, you can start with the CIS critical security controls, the Center of Internet Security critical security controls. Relatively lightweight, 18 major controls and a lot of sub-controls to help kind of build a program. Another one is if your business is all about Europe and you live and breathe all things Europe, there's the International Standards Organization, ISO, and they have the ISO 27001 framework, which is pretty massive, and it has lots and lots, like a couple hundred security controls. You start working your way down, and you can even get certified for ISO 27001, which is very cool. And then a third one is the NIST Cybersecurity Framework. So it's based in the U.S. It's a U.S. organization that's started and has kept this alive, but a lot of input from the public sector and the private sector, and it's trying to support both. And Garrett, as you were just highlighting, it has 5 major functions up until this month. Now has a 6th major function, and it's a really thoughtful idea of identify stuff, detect stuff, respond to stuff, react to stuff, recover from stuff. Some major pillars there. So other people will say, hey, I'm in an organization, we're highly regulated. We do a lot of credit card processing. I'll say, hey, okay, maybe you want to start with the PCI regulations first and start that for your program. But I'll say the NIST Cybersecurity Framework has become one of the de facto standards for cybersecurity programs. So it is something that a lot of folks are using, and a lot of people, when they say, hey, where do I start? I'm like, this is a good place to start. So,
but I mean, I hear that a lot with that is, where do I start? It's so big and voluminous. And I mean, so to your point earlier, I love recommending that folks start with the benchmarks. That is absolutely what used to be the CIS top 20.
Yeah, it was the SANS top 20, and then somehow SANS is like, hey, we're bored with it. CIS, you can take it because we got bigger fish to fry. And then the CIS had the CIS top 20 for a bunch of years, and then a couple years ago they switched it to 18. They just they morphed it a little bit.
I love that. And CIS has a similar operational maturity level type approach. The IG groups, I think. The implementation groupings of controls. That's kind of provides a stair-step approach to that. That's similar to what NIST is trying to do here, right?
Yeah, I think of NIST. One, they've got their major categories. We just mentioned each of those categories. So identify, protect, detect, respond, recover, and govern. So if we take govern out of the picture for a second, the idea was, first thing you want to do is identify stuff. What's your inventory? What kind of computers do you have? What kind of networks do you have? Identify the things you have. And so they have a whole bunch of steps of kind of check boxes of like, hey, why don't you go identify your endpoints? Why don't you identify your servers and identify your cloud environments? Once you've identified your things, then you think about, you move on to the protection focus. Oh, look at that. My little window did the little thumbs up.
Nice.
I love the Mac camera. It does that. We'll probably get like fireworks too at one point. Me and my jazz hands. Then you can like protect the things, right? So, hey, once we've identified the things, now we move on to the second category of protecting the things. So for like a brand new security program, it's kind of like, kind of work your way around this wheel. Okay, we protect things. Well, now we need to detect if a bad thing happens, right? Do we have, did someone get caught in a phishing email? Was there some ransomware dropped? Did a hacker make their way in? Right? Can we detect bad things in our environment? And then how do we detect things? Fourth pillar, respond. Hey, if we've detected a bad thing doing something into our environment, do we have the ability to respond to it? And then, hey, once we've responded and we've stopped the bad thing from happening in our environment, how do we recover, get back to business? Right. So those are kind of like the key areas. Now, I think some folks are a little bit recognize that they need to think things maybe not as linear, because going through all of those steps could take a very long time, and the bad guys aren't waiting. The bad guys aren't waiting for you to get all the way around the wheel. So there is some realization of like, actually, you may want to think about identifying at the same time as detecting, and like put some cycles into more than one area at the same time, because as you're trying to build in protective controls, you need to really recognize we need to be able to respond. We need to have some response capabilities in place. So sometimes you need to do a couple of those.
Yeah, because if you just spend too much time on one, and like you're saying, treat it like a linear thing, you're neglecting a lot. I think that's probably maybe why the governed piece, or one of the reasons why the governed piece was added, because from my perspective, and again, the layman's perspective, it's always inferred that you do this on a continuous basis and check your work and evolve, but like it's never explicitly called out. So I think that's smart that they would add that government or governing piece to it.
It's really interesting that governance wasn't built in before. Because and I think about this, and I guess it depends on who you talk to, who's building a security program. If you get into an organization, you start working, and folks say, hey, are we allowed to, and then I'm going to, it's a fill in the blank after that. Are we allowed to change our screensaver timeout? I'm going to give something so dumb and stupid.
Sure.
Screensaver timeout. The default is like 1 minute, but I'd like to change it to 20 minutes. Are we allowed to do that? That's where governance comes in. That's what, people hate policies. Everybody hates writing policies and standards and reading them and adhering to them. But the truth is, our user community, our IT users, are asking us these questions all the time. Hey, can I use Google Drive even though we're a OneDrive and SharePoint shop?
Right.
And that's where governance starts to come in. Oh, hey, maybe I should write down what we should be doing, what we must be doing. And that's where governance starts to come in, like start to identify some of the things that should be done, policies and procedures.
Oversight and whatnot.
Yeah, some of those oversights. I think one of the other, so I think that's a really interesting thing. That wasn't really in the cybersecurity framework before.
Not at all. I mean, again, I'd argue we had our hands full with bigger fish to fry. On my side, I was always on the security operations side, definitely neglecting the policy side as well. But I think it's, to your point, I think it's very smart to add that. I also took a bit of a gander into that and saw that in addition to just overall governance, they're adding specificity into governing things like supply chain management, third-party risk management. I thought that was really cool because, I mean, thanks to lots of events in the news, we can, third-party risk management is now a big thing. It has been for quite some time, but, not only just, hey, you need to be aware of this, but like, hey, you need to calculate this as part of your risk assessment. You need to be phoning a friend and like including these third-party vendors in your incident response training efforts. Like, what? That's mind-boggling to me, where before we would almost pretend like we didn't know who the third parties or the sub-processors of our data were.
It's funny. You don't want to name drop, so I'll name drop. I think about You said, things in the news, and I was just going to say SolarWinds. I know SolarWinds isn't really it's still in the news. It's still in the news, which is crazy.
I mean, that one still stings.
But that was the major crux of third-party supply chain becoming like requirements in a lot of places. Now, granted, probably should have been a long time before that, but like that was a big crux. Go back 10 years. Akamai, and some of us forget about this. I actually forget the name of the attack that hit Akamai like 10 plus years ago. That was kind of the crux that started the whole zero trust push. The whole idea of like the identity is now the perimeter. And it was something along the lines of that. We can go back and look at that another time. But it's interesting. Certain events happen to very large organizations, which cause change. And I do believe SolarWinds is why Govern now exists in the cybersecurity framework.
It's really interesting. Something that I talk about in what I do for a living a lot is we talk about subprocessors of data, and we talk about the threats that AI tools and, generative AI tools present. Well, you may be looking out for those AI tools that folks are using in your environment, like, make sure no one's using Chat GPT or Bard or whatever, which, by the way, there's no inherent risk there. It's just still the user problem. But what about when a vendor, such as a project management solution, adds an AI tool as a sub-processor of your data? Like, what if they add AI functionality into their chatbot? That could potentially put you in the same risk profile as someone just openly using Chat GPT. So I think this inclusion of, hey, you need to not only be aware, but also document and include these third parties and aspects of your supply chain into that risk assessment. I think it's really smart. And actually, I think it's very timely, if not a bit overdue.
It's, it's interesting. What you're describing, I think, a couple of years ago, the cool kids were saying SBOMs, software bill of materials, right? All the stuff that makes up your systems.
That's right.
And if I go back like 6 years, 7 years, the introduction of chatbots into a lot of websites, right? They're everywhere now. Hey, I go to a website and there's a chatbot that's ready there to help you. And,
right.
A lot of it was automated. It wasn't a whole lot of AI behind it, but some of it was automated. Some of it actually had people working at a desk, ready to respond. But like that was a supply chain risk just 6-7 years ago. There was a major airline that introduced a third-party chatbot, a JavaScript-based chatbot into their airline website, customer support type of a thing. And, the chatbot wasn't well hardened, wasn't well secured. And, bad guys decided to take advantage of that chatbot and then made their way into the airline's reservation system and pulled out, all the reservations because they were all tied together.
Yep.
So it's like that. And as you described, AI now becoming part of integrated. Think about a tool that you use every day. I'll think like 10 of them. Zoom now has a Zoom AI companion. Slack now has the AI thing. Microsoft Outlook now has the Copilot that'll just say, I'll give you a summary of your inbox, which me, Garrett. At any moment, I have, a good 20 to 30, 100,000 unread emails.
And anxiety producing amount of unread emails. Right.
And yeah, Microsoft Copilot. Hey, Copilot, go create me a PowerPoint presentation. And which that scares me because I'm paid, medium-sized dollars to generate PowerPoint slides for my career. Right. I think I'm going to be out of a job soon, thanks to Copilot.
Well, and I mean, anyone in security feels this. And if you don't already, you should probably get familiar with this feeling. But the moment you start to hear like, there's more convenience added to this piece of software or this solution, there's always going to be some sort of security, implications. And I don't want to be the old man in my yard shaking my stick at AI, but it's like the more power, and we'll get into that later because I'll go on a nice tirade, but the more power we give to those AI bots to pull data from other systems, and we're not checking that, and we're not, smoke testing or pen testing those approaches, the closer we are to exactly what you're talking about, an attacker getting a hold of a chatbot and then all of a sudden pulling all of the PII from reservation data out. That stuff happens all the time. So I would say don't stress about it, and definitely stress about it, but don't resist it. But certainly just consider that is just another entry point for an attacker. And if you don't consider that, then you are burying your head in the sand. Yeah, that's my rant.
And so we'll wrap up Hot Topic this week by saying the NIST CSF 2.0 basically added a new grouping called Govern. And govern, it's even funny if you look at their images, like govern kind of circles all of the other things.
Right.
That's the big update. They added govern, and then with that, they added these things like risk management, third-party risk management. Go create your policies and standards and write them down. Determine who has, the responsibilities, roles and responsibilities. That's the big change. In it, it's interesting they didn't go from 1.1 to 1.2. They went to 2.0.
Well, I mean, when was the last update? I mean, years ago, right?
18, yeah. Came out in 2014, updated in 1.0, 2018, 1.1. And so it wasn't too long ago, but it is what it is. It's 2.0. That just means it's better.
I'd say before we wrap that up, the big thing that I saw that it added for me, which I thought was really cool, and I think I hinted at this earlier, is the incremental attainment steps that they added. Because again, NIST CSF has been, if you're a bit timid, kind of unapproachable, but they added these tiers 1 through 4. It's partial, risk-informed, repeatable, and adaptive to kind of let you dip your toe into the detection or the hardening or the response development, to where you don't have to go full bore. You can measure incremental success, and for those of us that are in those security teams, I think that's really important to have that.
That's huge.
As not only a measure of success, but a light at the end of the tunnel of like, hey, we're through tier 1. This is great. And to your point earlier, and I'll end after this, managing multiple pieces of the CSF at one time, that makes it a lot easier in my eyes. Like, hey, let's get to tier 1 on 3 of the CSF controls or something like that.
That's huge, right? The fact that that didn't exist, that there weren't tiers, right? Tier 1, right. You're a small company. You need to do some type of cybersecurity, right? You're a small company. You need to do this, but this thing's huge. These frameworks are enormous. And I don't have a dedicated information security team to go do all this. It's part-time where I'm doing this, and I got to go do all my other IT engineering work or my DevOps work.
Right.
The fact that these tiers exist, that they've actually said, oh, hey, how do we help smaller businesses dip their toe into this? And then, this was definitely built around the larger organizations, the big enterprises, that are targeting, as they now call it, tiers 3 and tier 4. Those types of tiers do exist in other frameworks. It just hadn't existed in this one. This one was just like, do you do this? And if so, how much of it do you do? So now there's okay, here's a small piece that you can bite off. Go work on that. And then when you feel like you've made it to that point of tier 1 on a few key areas, great. Come back next year and see if you can mature that to a little bit of tier 2.
Yep. And if you're keeping score, it's more realistic of a representation of where you're at.
Yeah, good call out on that. That's a really good catch, and that is really important. Hey, little companies, now you can use the CSF, where before, where would you start? You'd get this gigantic spreadsheet and wish you luck. All right. That was Hot Topic for the week. Thank you, Garrett.
Good for you, NIST.
Thank you,
Way to
NIST.
Get an update out there.
Good for you, NIST. We appreciate you, NIST. We're going to move into Nerd Zone now. Garrett, I'm going to throw this over to you. Do you have anything in the Nerd Zone you want to get us into today?
Yeah, so a couple days ago, Pôle Emploi, which I am not a French speaker. I took some Francais in high school.
It's not
I even looked
Pole.
up the pronunciation
it's
of this to make sure I wasn't totally messing this up. It's just Pôle. It's said with a French accent, but we're not going to do that. But anyway, France's unemployment office got hit, and 43 million records. Everybody who has signed up in the past 20 years has had their records stolen, and we're not talking about scant details: name, date of birth, place of birth, the French equivalent of a social security number, which I can't remember what that's called off the top of my head, email address, physical address, phone number. So this will absolutely spawn a wave of identity theft in France. This is exactly what a precursor to a vast wave of identity theft. So, you look on their website, their guidance, it's, change all your passwords and be on the lookout for any suspect emails. Likely for the next several years, people will need to have their tinfoil hats on and really kind of, checking who's on the other end. Because, that is prime pickings for identity theft. And as we know, and Sean, you know this as well as I do, there are rings of people that are set up and poised, ready to act on this type of attack.
You're reading through this, and these numbers are huge, right? There's no question. 43 million records, juicy PII. You said it, right? But it's the sad thing is in the state of the world we're in right now, I'm looking at it going, yeah, is this just another blob of data to add to all the other blobs of data? And now, the folks of France who had to deal with unemployment time, hey, no, now you're in it as well. It's almost like I've seen the news so many times that I'm like, do I even care anymore about this? I do care, but it's so sad that I'm like I've almost become numb to it a little bit.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's funny you say that because you're right. It's like, well, welcome to the club. Take a number. For anyone whose records were stolen in the OPM hack, it's like that was kind of scary at first, but now it's like, oh well, what's next? So yeah, that was one in the news that kind of freaked me out. The other thing I want to talk about is related to what we were talking about earlier is AI. I don't want to be the old man in my yard shaking my rake at the sky, but this is like the perfect storm of tech flash in the pan. It's the triumvirate of greatness. Everyone is using AI. Everyone is scared of AI, and no one actually understands how it works, aside from a few pockets of folks. And again, I'm not saying like this is going to go away, but think about, blockchain several years ago. Like that was all in the news, and blockchain has not gone away, but no one really cares about it because they understand what it is and what threats they present and what they don't. I think we're just now seeing the tip of the iceberg with AI, and I'll tell you why. Personally, I saw a video the other day where I knew someone had used an AI service to get Morgan Freeman to pitch their new sneakers that they were selling. I mean, this is not a company that would be endorsed by Morgan Freeman or be able to afford that, but uncredited, unreferred to, it was very obviously Morgan Freeman telling me to buy the sneakers from this one YouTuber. So, again, I'm not terrified of it. I'm not scared of it, but like, it's certainly something that we need to be aware of these days as this technology keeps getting better and better.
I go back a year and a half ago, ChatGPT's dropping, right? Really getting in the news. And I was the old man being like, nah, I got all the tech I need. I don't need this new fang-dangled stuff. And then one day I was like, well, wait a second. Let me just take a peek at it here. And some of you know that I like to not only do the cybers, but also do the music. I'm like, what if I tell ChatGPT to write me, some song lyrics in the voice of Maynard James Keenan, who's the lead singer of the band Tool. And it did. And I was like, well, then can you write me the music that would go along with this? And like all of a sudden me and someone else, we're sitting down basically recording what ChatGPT created for us because we, gave it some prompt. I'm like, oh, I like this. And, as of yesterday, I was working on a town hall presentation to be delivered in front of all the employees of a sizable company. And I'm using Microsoft Copilot, which is Microsoft's, internal version of ChatGPT. It's the easiest way to describe it. Their AI. And I had it help me create my script of what I wanted to say. And then I took that script over into PowerPoint because it was a shop that uses lots of Microsoft stuff. And it created me PowerPoint slides. And I was like, this is great. You just saved me, because these aren't the things that I'm great at. I'm not great at those things. But you just saved me eons of staring at a blank screen going, what do I write? What do I type? Even though I know this stuff, this is just not what I do really well. And you just did that for me. And you got me the 80% solution. And I just tweaked the 20%. I was like, this is something here. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about the basics. Like you even said, the tip of the iceberg. Like I'm literally talking about the basics and the amount of hours that were saved. And I was extremely appreciative of these capabilities that were at my fingertips.
Well, and I do not purport to be an expert, please don't misconstrue, but I use AI all the time. And, for those of us that do use it all the time, it's exactly what you said. It gets you about 50 to 80% of the way there. Like if you've ever had it try to write code for you, it's hit or miss.
I've heard some people say it's great for code. I haven't tried it yet, but it's great for code, but not great for writing like news articles. And by the way, it was a reporter who was saying this. Reporter saying terrible for writing news articles, great for code. And it's funny, a coder is like maybe not great for code, but
yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, like I wouldn't have it write me a news article, but I'd have it write me an outline. I wouldn't have it write me a full stack of code, but I might, give me an idea of how I would automate the retrieval of this data and take it somewhere else. And again, I'm not a rock star developer. But anyway, that's my take on AI. It's like we just need to be aware of it, and I think again, being aware of subprocessors of data, pen testing AI solutions. If you're going to put them into your production offering, I think that's very just be aware and constantly vigilant, just like any other technology that we introduce into our environments.
Yeah, and if I think about this, since you brought it up, and let's think about our show, like our audience is aspiring and existing cybersecurity leaders. Don't walk away from AI. Embrace it. It's the new tech. It's, possibly, I don't know, like computers was a very large technology to exist when they were created. I guess the internet, a very large technology to exist. I was about to say,
yeah, the internet.
And I think I'm going to skip over cloud as not that big compared to those two things, and then AI. Like I was going to say cloud, but I'm just going to leave cloud. Computers, internet, AI. I feel like those might be the three, big things. And this thing's huge. And so, hey, aspiring and existing cybersecurity leaders, don't do what a lot will say is deny, block, turn it off. No, we as cybersecurity leaders, we need to embrace the technology. We need to embrace this new capability. And back to the NIST piece, we need to figure out how to govern it. Use it, govern it.
I'll give you my pure play security guidance on AI. Okay. So you can downplay it all you want. I saw some post about, AI is just, a large amount of or statements. That's fine. But I would, just like you said, embrace it, be aware of it. Do not shy away from it, because just from a practical, adoption standpoint, I saw in Reuters that ChatGPT gained 100 million monthly active users within its second month of operation. So just from an adoption standpoint of who's using it and what, everyone is using it. Everyone at your company is likely using it, and that's not meant to scare you. Just be aware of it. Yeah. Issue some policy. You don't want them to put code in ChatGPT. Write that down and have someone sign it. Like, it's that simple.
There's one thing that really jumped out to me in this, right? I'm going to go back to like the Zoom example, right? Mm-hmm. Zoom exists. Everybody uses the Zoom, right? Everybody uses Zoom. A lot of people use Zoom and then they record their meetings. I'm not talking about the AI. Just hit the record button. The audio gets recorded, video gets recorded. It gets saved, usually saved in the Zoom cloud. You download it if you need it, send it off, right? Recently, Zoom announced the AI companion, which basically does, the AI stuff. So it listens to your meetings. It's capturing the audio, it's taking our audio and converting it to text, so voice to text, and then it's analyzing the text and summarizing your meetings for you. And so I had questions brought my way, as an advisement, like, hey, should we enable or disable this? And I said, well, you already use Zoom. You have a contract with Zoom, the company, right? Yes, they have legal obligations. And are you allowing people to record their meetings? Hit the record button, like, oh yeah, we don't disable the record feature. I go, then you're already there. You're already there. This is just this is another capability, because all the stuff's still living in the Zoom cloud that you've contracted them with. Now, here's the thing. Zoom has like a whole Zoom app store, and then there's like other Zoom apps that could like plug into Zoom that are not official. That's where I say be careful of the risk, going back to third-party risk, because there's lots and lots of startups who are saying AI, LLM, Gen AI, who are creating things to plug into our environments. There's where the real risk starts coming in, because these tools haven't really gone through the vetting of like a Zoom. And so the concern is, you've got, higher risk there of possible data loss, someone who didn't do a great job securing their buckets of where they're storing data. So, that's what I think of. And I think of that as like any new and emerging tech. Be careful of the new stuff. So when I say embrace AI, don't just open the doors to anything that has the tag AI on it. You still need to
learn about it.
Assess your assess your risk. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. This is good.
Sound advice.
Good nerd zone. Thank you. We're going to move on to our next section, a new section to the show. This is called War Stories. We do need that. We need that visual. That's coming.
I'm going to provide manual motion graphics for this episode.
Thank you. War Stories. Garrett, do you want to introduce us to War Stories?
Oh, yeah. So, war stories for me, this is just words of wisdom, things I've learned, definitely not as old as Sean, but, I've been through the ringer myself. You're
going to catch up to me one of these days.
Yeah, I know. So let me pick one. I mean, this goes right back to what we were talking about today. SaaS application sprawl. It's something that I work with every day in my day job. I would say that every company, if you're not on it like white on rice, you have a SaaS problem. You've got a problem with SaaS. What does this relate to my war story? Well, I had a job where I was tasked with coming into a very large environment that had been neglected for a long amount of time, doing an assessment, trying to figure out what's our first direction, go, understand the risk, and then build a path to reduce risk. Pretty normal, security gig. Well, I walked in and saw that they were managing all of their applications, and this without diming them out. This is a multinational company, been around for almost 20 years, 1,300 some odd employees, had their applications written down in a spreadsheet, like their approved applications were written down in a spreadsheet that one person maintained. There was an approval process that, everyone who wanted to use some SaaS applications had to go through that. That approval process on average, Sean, can you guess how long that took?
An approval process?
For an application.
I would actually think it's going to take a few days.
2 months. 2 months was their average response time to get the applications approved process.
So in this 2-month window, like you had to wait as a user, like couldn't use the thing for those 2 months?
You weren't supposed to, but I think you can guess where I'm going with this.
Supposed to, yeah.
When I put endpoint agents on the machines and started monitoring them for security events, the amount of stuff that we saw was mind-boggling. Like, okay, everyone knows not to enable remote desktop, protocol.
Hold on. Not everybody knows that. I feel like it's a very small audience that knows not to do this.
So,
we would like to
those
think
who are not
everybody
aware,
knows.
You should not use remote desktop. 3389 is not your friend. Okay. If you want to go for a laugh, 3389rocks.com. It's the funniest thing ever. Anyway, 3389 is remote desktop port. Don't use remote desktop. It's a bad idea. But anyway, we were seeing that because remote desktop itself was blocked from the network, folks were engaging in remote desktop sharing of other ways, using things like ngrok to provide visibility into development production instances. So anyway, my war story is that I walked into this environment and identified, I'm not going to go into hard numbers, but I identified probably a 10x factor of the amount of applications that I thought we were using versus the amount of applications we're actually using. And the entry points that we would find on a daily basis befuddled me, and to where I found out, so the end summation of all the story is that this long, voluminous application approval process was doing more harm than good to their users because people were ignoring this guidance wholeheartedly and just doing whatever the hell they wanted. And this resulted in things like, again, remote desktop over HTTP, everyone signing up for AWS and Azure instances and hosting their content, still under the good name of this company that I worked for. So moral of the story of this war story is you need to provide a efficient means of understanding what kind of technology folks are using in your environment, much to the AI story earlier, much to the NIST reference earlier. It is a very, very crucial point in your company's timeline when you start to understand how technology gets into your environment and what you're going to do about it. So I would say learn from me, provide an efficient and easy to use application approval process. Do not block access and try to embrace this rapid clip of adoption. Because as I mentioned earlier, this technology adoption is only getting faster as folks are hip to things like ChatGPT and other technologies that are catching on quickly.
I mean,
rant over.
There's always, you never stop spending for cybersecurity stuff. Like there's always something else you can buy. Like in this case here, you mentioned process, but there's also like tools like allow listing, deny listing tools that could come into play where it helps with the automation. But again, more money out of the budget.
I mean, to the point earlier, start iteratively. You're not going to be able to boil the ocean and fix the problem on day one, but start doing something and don't stop. I think that's probably something that we see often is a lot of folks will take some aggressive stance at trying to fix something, and then it just peters off because they don't curate it. They'll get some modicum of success initially, but then they just stop because it seems like a waste of time. But I would say that is one of the things you need to kind of be hyper vigilant about.
That's interesting. All right, I'm going to give a quick war story. It's kind of this is interesting because I feel like some folks that I've talked to around this might still be actively in the war room. So this isn't maybe not a war story of the past. So if you are a Microsoft 365 customer, one of the cool features you get of being that customer is you get the Microsoft Secure Score, a nice like percentage between 0 and 100. It's like a grade school grade, right? Of how secure you are. And really it's like, hey, how many, security checkboxes did you put into Active Directory? Entra ID. Entra ID.
Shame on you.
How many checkboxes did you put into, SharePoint and or Microsoft Teams to like, harden this environment or not allow shared documents with unapproved people? Like there's all, it's checkboxes everywhere.
Sure.
For setting up your environments, right? And so more of those security boxes you check, the higher your secure score gets. Are you using Defender as your endpoint agent? Are you using Defender for email security on Outlook? Like stuff like that.
Makes sense.
Right?
Yeah. Another way to provide kind of an iterative measurement of where you're at in your risk posture.
Yeah. And the thought is like, hey, if I'm building, trying to secure my IT environment, what's my score? My score is a 50. Okay. How do I get it to a 60? My score is a 60. How do I get it to a 70? Right.
This month's goal is to get from 50 to 60 or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's, it's not uncommon that you'll see month to month number kind of goes up, goes down a little bit. Maybe Microsoft slightly changes the rules, which might make the numbers change a little bit because it's online.
You introduce more technology, you buy a new company.
Right. Things could change, right? Your risk, posture changes a little bit. I have seen this weird thing happen with multiple conversations I've had with multiple people who are responsible for multiple environments that are using Microsoft 365, some of them using the super expensive fancy version, which Microsoft just calls E5, or the less fancy version called E3, where a month ago in February, people were getting, some organizations were getting the scores in like 65 to the 75 range. So grade school, grade, they were getting, C's to, D plus to C's, C plus range, right?
Sure.
And then all of a sudden, March comes around, they look at their secure score, they're in the 20s and 30s, like F. Like low F, like, you are going to be on some type of list and you're going to be ejected from the school at the end of the semester.
Like it took some hard work to fail that hard.
Like not like 70 to 60 and we opened something up, but like I've heard these conversations from multiple organizations and I don't know the root yet. Like we may come back next time and learn a little bit about this, but something has changed recently.
Everyone's a domain admin.
I mean, Microsoft's had some security issues over the last several months. Did they flip some switch? And, I don't know. So like I say, I know some people are still in this war room and it was top of mind. So I shared it. So maybe we'll come back and have more of this story.
Yeah, it sounds terrible. And again, it lends credence to the fact that we need these iterative steps, not only available, but also publicly referenceable. Like, what does a 70 versus a 30 mean? Where am I? What can I do to get back to where I need to be? Because again, that's the world that I think we live in as security folks, is like, let me understand the path and then let's build that path and measure ourselves along the way. I mean, it's a very simple process, kind of sprinkled with very difficult technical concepts.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. All right, we're going to move on to another new section. It's known as Let's Be Humans. You may be surprised to find out that both Garrett and myself are human beings. We are not cyborgs.
Well,
I mean, it's not been disproven, I suppose.
You can't prove I'm not a cyborg.
So some of the things we like to talk about off air, we talk a lot about music. We're both musicians, also like deep music lovers, but we're also like into things that are way far away from the cybersecurity and the security tech world. So we thought we'd do a little, human section. So Garrett, any human things you want to talk about this week?
Well, my family and I are on spring break this week, so we took a trip just right outside of town. I'm here in Texas. Don't hold it against me. I'm here in Texas. We took just a quick staycation out to a nice place. That was really nice. Kind of a good reminder to everyone who's listening. Work is important, but also disconnecting and just kind of being human for a week. And grounding yourself, I think, is really important.
Nice to get away with the fam.
Oh yeah. I got a weird symbol recently. I'll try not to spend too much time on this, but when I was in high school,
Hold on. You say symbol. I know what you mean, but like someone listening might be like the Illuminati, like a new symbol.
Sorry, not the ampersand. I didn't get a new emoji character.
I got a new like control something character on my keyboard.
Right. No, I got it. I play drums, so I got a new drum symbol.
I got it.
But it's funny, and you know, I'm stupid. I should have brought it in here with me, but. This guy, when I was in high school, I went to a performing arts magnet high school. I know it sounds made up, like Fame. And we had a guy come in and do a drum clinic for us. And he was this real weird dude, Tony Verderosa. And he had a line of cymbals from Sabian that were supposed to mimic electric drums and cymbals. So he brought this in, showed us this whole thing. Anyway, he had this wild looking crazy ribbon cymbal. It looked like a rectangular sheet of metal that had been folded onto itself like a piece of gum or something like that. Anyway, it's called the V Wave. It's called the V Wave, and I picked that up recently off eBay. Did not pay an exorbitant amount of money for it, and it sounds like absolute shit. It just sounds weird, and
I love where this just ends, just like that.
Yeah,
it's just garbage.
It's just bizarre, and like I'm not upset that I got it, but I'm certainly like don't meet your heroes, folks.
Okay, I can't believe this. So out of view of my camera is a wall of CDs, right? I'm holding up the CD case for one Tony Verderosa.
What?
Signed, and it even says, "To Sean, thanks, Tony Verderosa."
That's the guy.
That's him. I watched him do
weird.
I watched him do a drum clinic in I don't know. It was 1990 something, early 1990 something at wasn't even a Guitar Center. It was like a Guitar Center like shop that no longer exists.
Sam Ash or something.
I couldn't believe as soon as you said his name, I went over to the wall. I was like, please, thank goodness I keep all my CDs in alphabetical order. Let me go find this.
Hilarious. Now here's the deal. There's no way the guy's listening, but nicest guy ever.
Really nice.
I mean, just a gem of a human, and entertained all of us, high school students, asking him all kinds of stuff. But yeah, what a weird blip in time. So there you go. There's my human update.
That's
got spring break and some weird symbol.
I'll give a quick human update. Because we're running a little long. So I do sing in a rock band named Octavate, and something cool about this is we just released a new song today. So if you go onto the Spotify or the Apple Music and look up Octavate, Octavate.
Not Octa.
Different Octa, right? Oh, some people might think like, oh, Cyber Nerds naming his band after an identity management company. That would be pretty funny.
No cease and desist, please.
No, it's not them. Not them. Very different. Released a new single named Psy. And one other thing, on my record wall behind me, all blurred out, I grabbed a new record this week, vinyl. That's a Duran Duran record that I'm pointing to behind me. I thought it was brand new, but it actually came out the week before Halloween last year, and is very Halloween themed.
Still relatively new.
More than half the album's covers, and they even cover Psycho Killer by the Talking Heads, which I was very excited about.
That's very cool.
That's it.
Making music.
That's my Let's Be Humans for the week. We got more, but we'll save it for next time.
Love it.
We're going to move on to our last section of the show. It's called the job market. Garrett, you brought this idea to me. I love the idea, so I'm going to pass it over to you. Talk a little bit about this, and we'll get into it. We'll just tease it today because we're running long.
Sure. So, job market, everyone's hiring, everyone's firing, everyone's looking for jobs. So we want to help out as much as we can. Feel free to send us your resumes. I'm sure Sean will populate some kind of a contact link, way to get it to us. But send us your resumes. We will scrub it with all your personal details. We'll do a review on one of our subsequent shows and maybe give you some tips on how to make that resume pop a little bit more and get a little bit more attention. So feel free. Like I said, we'll scrub it. We won't list any personal details. And yeah, hopefully that'll be helpful for some folks.
Nice. That's good. I'm thinking we'll save the rest of the job market for the next time.
Cool.
Just looking at our time. We're having a good show here, but I think we'll save this for the next time.
Cool. Sounds good.
Okay, we're rounding the bend. So I think we covered our key sections for our first relaunch of Cybersecurity Growth live stream, webcast, podcast. We had our hot topic section. our nerd zone, our war stories, our Let's Be Humans, and then a little introduction to this job market idea. I do love the idea of us getting to know other folks and provide some guidance. Both of us have had the experience of being the hirer and the hiree, right? We've been the hiring managers, and we've seen things that really stand out to us, both good and bad. So that'll be exciting. And then we'll also give some tips and tricks as we have this section in the future as well. Well, that is a wrap, folks. We want to thank you all for listening. You can find Cybersecurity Growth at cybersecuritygrowth.com. You can even go to cybersecuritygrowth.com/blog to find all of the previous shows. We're on all the social networks under the name Cybersecurity Growth. My name is Shawn Valley. I'm the creator of the show and the music you've heard here on Cybersecurity Growth. You can find me in most of the social places at Shawn Valley or at Cybersecurity Growth. Garrett, do you want to let folks know where they can find you?
Yeah, so I don't do any social media, so you can find me at the local pool hall, maybe the bowling alley, the Rotary Club. Just ask around for Garrett Gross, and they'll likely point you my way. Just kidding. If you do need to get a hold of me, I'm on LinkedIn. That's the only social I do. But.
That's all. I was going to say, Saturday bingo at church. You can likely find Garrett there.
That's right.
If you like the show, please tell your friends. If you hate it, tell your adversaries. Like and subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Great show. I learned something new to help me in my cybersecurity career. So this week we covered the NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0. I guess I'd say sorta. We kind of dipped our toes into that. We are jump-starting the show. We are live on Twitch every other week, Fridays at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 10:30 p.m. Pacific Time. I think it's Pacific. I may have said that wrong. And 6:30 p.m. GMT. And then we're in YouTube and your pod feeds a few days later. This has been a wonderful restart, Garrett. I'm excited to have you here.
Well, thanks so much for having me. This is great.
Looking forward to doing this again in a couple weeks. A new hot topic, other interesting things to talk about, and we'll keep going from there.
Awesome.
Bye for now, everybody.
Thanks so much.